Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to first say thank you to the manager about reminding me to register my vehicle this month before the 28th. And the electronic notices that go out of the clerk's office are pretty helpful as well. We'll go through this however you'd like. I think if it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, I'll just kind of give an overview of where we stand and where I see the significant changes that you might see in our budget. I'm sure you've all looked at it. In our 13 budget overview, the major changes or significant differences obviously are the CBA adjustments, the wage adjustments that went through the wage accounts. There's an inclusion in this budget of 4 new vehicles, 3 line cruisers and 1 for an unmarked vehicle. We need to start replacing those vehicles. A new pilot program that we've previously discussed, that we're going to try and run a second police academy, a part-time police academy here during the summer and target a different audience of people. We've got to find a way to change the negative slope on our replacements of the specials. We can talk more about that. There's also a proposal to reinstitute what is now a frozen lieutenant's position, has been since 2005, and included in that is a new full-time position. Obviously, we'll have some discussion about that. The mounted patrol is included in there, and there's gas changes as well, and I made some reductions and adjustments to accounts that are based on our current run rates in the vacation and sick areas, which were we're running substantially below what we budgeted, so I did some reductions in there. That's the general overview of our 13, and there's also, whenever you choose to get to it, there's 3 current items that I'd like to discuss with you before we're done tonight. And last thing, before I forget, and I will, more important is, you may or may not know that Deputy Sawyer is going to be attending the FBI National Academy beginning the 29th.
I'm driving down the 29th. I start on the 30th.
So the FBI National Academy is an outstanding training program. It's been referred to as sort of the PhD in law enforcement. It's an 11-week program that's a resident program. So he will be gone during that entire period of time, graduating sometime in mid-late December. And it's a great opportunity for him, and it's going to mean a lot more work for me, but it's a great opportunity. We're very excited about that, so I hope you'll wish him well in his studies down there. So with that, however you'd like to proceed, Mr. Chairman, we stand ready to answer any questions you have. Whether you want to do an overview, you'll go section by section, however you'd like to proceed.
Okay. How would the board like this to be? To go step by step, or?
I've got some questions. I'd like to go.
I've reviewed the budget, Mr. Chairman. It's your board. I don't need step by step.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with your question?
Great. Congratulations, Deputy Chief. Congratulations to both of you in the fine performance of your department this summer.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I just have, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. It's something we've touched on before. The town manager has sent an email to department heads on May 9th, and it's more about the metrics for performance of duty on state property, something you're well aware of. And I noticed in your budget that your computer, your IT, your communications budget has been flat for several years. And for that incident reporting, I'd be interested in perhaps beefing up those lines to expedite that information so we can have a full dialogue with the state. That would include perhaps workers' comp injuries that do occur on state property, and that's an important consideration for budget concerns. So at some point later on, I'd be interested in that information. Thank you very much.
Okay. Very well.
Mr. Nichols.
Yeah. First one, and I'm just going in the order of the pages.
Sure.
I went through it and picked up. The small one, tuition reimbursement, went from $2,500 to $8,000, up $5,500. Is that based on something you know specifically?
Yeah, we have a number of officers who have come forward. Both one of our dispatchers is currently a bachelor's program, and we have 3 other officers who are pursuing master's degrees. So given that increased demand, I always think it's a great thing to encourage folks to go. I've increased that line item. We've run flat for $2,500.
Is that something that's something that's contractually committed in the CBAs?
Town policy has a directive on how that works. It is as monies are available, and there are some order of priority. Anybody going for a master's degree has to have some pre-approval based on it being job-related and something that will benefit us, and it's a first-come, first-serve of what's available in that pool. But as I said, education is a huge thing. I believe it's very important. It helps our officers, great kind of statistics that show, more educated workforce has greater benefits to us. So I felt it was appropriate to try and bump that up a little bit so that we can accommodate helping those folks.
Okay. Overtime. One of the things I noted is that overtime across all of your accounts, and I'm including overtime training as well in that, is up about $73,000, $73,752, and I can give you the numbers by individual accounts if you wanted them, or whatever. I do have that. Whereas the overtime that's up as a function of the CBAs and the calculation is basically around $21,000. So there's essentially $52,000 in increases over and above what Mike had calculated for overtime and included in the warrant articles. And you can answer the question generally. I don't necessarily feel a need to go through the 3 or 4 or 5 accounts that there are to explain.
Yeah, I think the biggest answer to that is manpower. Our issue with this is that we reduced the number of specials. We have work we have to get done. So our increase in overtime for everybody else to cover those shifts that had been being covered by part-timers, I think, is a huge part of that. Our increase in training is a significant area. You've seen those numbers.
I think the biggest piece of it, Jamie, I don't care about every little dollar, but I think the biggest piece of it was in support services overtime wages. Essentially, there was $10,000 in the default, and there's $42,000 increase.
What line is that, or page?
That's on page 63, overtime wages under support services with the account number that ends in 140. Again, basically a $42,000 increase. I'm sorry, overtime training.
In 3,140?
Overtime training. Yep, 145.
Yeah. 145.
Yeah, 5,145. Yeah, that's a big bump in that one. The number you see going up is that we mentioned that specials class we want to increase. That's doing 2 things. As we try and run that summer program, one of the feedbacks we've been getting is the fact that we don't pay them for that academy class. We've added some money in there so that we can have those discussions and decide whether we're going to pay them by an hourly or base that on an hourly pace. It's a 200-hour class. We're going to have to run, if we do it in intensive, either 20 to 25 hours per week. And so the money in there is twofold, that big bump. That has to do with that class as well as instructor with that confined time period. We're going to probably have to pick up a good deal of the instructor time because the schedule that is done for the state goes over a longer period of time. We're going to confine this to that 10-week summer period so that we're going to hit our teachers and those kids that are off at school that can't come back for that training program. So that's that big jump in there.
Okay. And in the same area of the specials, and actually the opposite, if you look at the specials line on the same page, 120, that's actually going down by $4,000, yet we projected, and I think it was actually you that did these calculations, we had actually projected $32,541 of an increase based on the increased wages for the specials.
Yeah, there's 2 things that did that. One is I cut a half a week out because of just how the weeks fall in the summer when we start and when we end. And the other thing is the number of shifts that even if we got everything we're shooting for, we're just not going to get there right now. That number will have to go up in the future, but right now, I mean, I could have budgeted for the 168, but we're not going to get there.
But essentially what I expected to look at that and see that go up by the $32,000, so you've essentially paid for the training by keeping that number down and not reflecting the increase that was approved in the warrant articles.
Yeah, it's going to take us a while to get that number where it needs to be, so I just didn't see the need to bump that up artificially.
Are you in sync with the numbers I'm throwing out here, Mike? Or okay.
Richard, may I expand on that a little bit while you're there?
Sure.
May I, please? You plan on doing this training right here?
Yes. We currently run a satellite academy here anyway, and some of the training will come from Concord. The instructor will be there and they'll do it satellite.
Instead of us going over to Concord, they'll come here?
Yes. Well, we currently do it that way. Currently, we are one of the satellite, there's 3 different satellite locations. We host one of them here in our training room that's done video conferencing. There are certain things that they need to go to the academy for. As it stands right now, the training is 2 nights a week that they're in our satellite, and each Saturday they spend the day up at the academy.
Okay.
So there will be, and frankly, we're still working out what that schedule looks like, but I suspect we're going to do a lot of it here.
Well, I know that we've
want to attract more people. I have no problem with that.